Have you not heard the news? Manual CPC is dead. So why am I making a video talking about manual CPC if to me it's a dead strategy? You see, I do think it's a dead strategy, and for most advertisers, most of the time, it is pretty much graveyard territory. But there are still a few edge cases where manual CPC can be useful, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about those very specific use cases where manual CPC can work for your business. I'm still going to say in the very near future Google is going to remove this strategy. It's very, very clear that is going to happen at some stage. So just before they do that, let's talk about the good things that it could potentially do for your business. Starting off then, why do I say manual CPC is a dead strategy? Well, isn't it obvious? Because in the era of smart bidding, where Google's behavioral algorithm can see how users are interacting with ads and across Google's network and predicts their behavior very accurately based on tons of data points, most of which we can't see, Google has become good at predicting who is more or less likely to convert across pretty much all campaigns. They didn't get here overnight though, because I remember back in the day when smart bidding first became a thing, it was awful. It was so bad. And I remember all the stories about people testing it and it not working. I remember putting the first CPA in place on campaigns over 10 years ago. And I thought, this is awful. But now they've come a long way. They've got more data points. They've probably got more people in the Google ecosystem than ever before. And they have all of the data points needed to make it a success. And what that materially means is that when it comes to a human optimizing bids manually versus Google's bidding algorithm, most of the time the algorithm is going to win. It's as simple as that. They are using data points we can't even see. We're using a very small number of data points, whether it's time of day, whether it's device, whether it's keyword level, just a small number of data points, and it's pretty much impossible for us to win that battle. So when it comes to manual CPC and the modern era, there are only a very specific handful of cases I would advise a business to use manual CPC. So let's start off with the first case. The first case is advertisers with a very low volume, very small campaign can get away with manual CPC. Because smart bidding requires a lot of data in order to work correctly, when somebody has a very low volume campaign with not many conversions, then smart bidding isn't going to work. Google can't use those conversion points to predict future behavior, to know who is more or less likely to convert, and to push bids up when people could convert more likely, and to withdraw a bit more when people are less likely to convert. When you've got too little conversion data in your campaign, Google can't make these predictions and the bidding algorithm kind of falls apart. So in this scenario, you've got kind of two ways to manage the campaign yourself. You can either go after traffic with a maximize clicks strategy with a max CPC in place on top of that. So you're trying to drive as much traffic as you can to your keywords while maintaining a max CPC. So it's kind of a middle ground between, I guess, vanity-based smart bidding, which is about visibility and traffic, as opposed to conversion, and full manual CPC, where of course you're optimizing your bids yourself and setting your own max CPCs at keyword level. It's not harmful to do manual CPC in this situation. Setting bids at your own discretion for your own keywords at keyword level is fine. If you're comparing using maximize clicks with manual CPC in this scenario, you're not wrong either way. Maximize clicks will try and get as much traffic as possible without the right constraints though. And I'm going to assume you may not put the right constraints in place if you're considering manual CPC because it's a much more simplified strategy. I would say actually manual CPC in this scenario can be okay. So you might be thinking, okay, in this scenario you've given, it means that manual CPC isn't dead. Why would you say it's dead when you're saying people with tiny campaigns could use manual CPC? Well, it's quite simple because who the hell wants a tiny campaign? I don't know any business owner that says, hey, I want to run a very small campaign. I don't want to get leads. I don't want to get sales. I want to keep things as small as possible. I don't want better conversions. I don't want to grow my business. That doesn't happen. Well, if it does, let me know in the comments below, because I can pretty much guarantee most people in business want to grow their business or at least try a bit of ambition. So when you're stuck on manual CPC with a tiny campaign, it's a painful position to be in. It's not where you want to be. You want a campaign with loads of conversion data, loads of conversions going through, where you can move over to a smart bidding strategy that's going to get you more conversions and scale as your business scales. So yeah, manual CPC is dead apart from tiny campaigns, but those tiny campaigns could potentially mean the death of your business long term if you don't step up. So let's dwell on that point for a moment. If you have a tiny campaign with very few conversions coming in, what does that materially mean? It means your business doesn't have enough money to reinvest into Google Ads. You're not profitable enough. There's not an opportunity to scale. You're not closing enough leads to turn into sales in order to scale. You've got a lot of things to sort out before even looking at the Google Ads dashboard. Now, I'm just making this assumption. What I'm going to say as well is it could well be the case you have very poor conversion tracking set up, meaning you're not getting the conversion data you should be in order to get the campaign working. But let's assume your conversion data is perfect. There's no issues there. Then if you have a tiny campaign, you can't scale and you can't get enough conversion data in order to use a more advanced bidding strategy, there are some issues you need to work out. You need to work out how to convert more leads into sales to reinvest those profits into Google Ads to scale your business, to get more leads and to get more customers. Your website might be atrocious or not converting. It might be a very pretty website. Who knows? All I know is if you're running a low volume campaign, your conversion tracking's working, then it means your offer, your process of selling, or your website could be an issue. Look into those three things, and I guarantee you, if you get those things sorted and you have ambition and you want to push, manual CPC will be a thing of the past. Remember, being on manual CPC with a small campaign is a painful position to be in. It should be uncomfortable to you. Don't forget that and let that sink in. Another scenario where manual CPC could be appropriate is kind of similar. It comes down to that choice again between manual CPC and maximize clicks, and that is for brand new campaigns in brand new accounts with no conversion data. If you launch a new campaign and you've never had a conversion before, you've never marketed your website before, and you've launched a Google Ads campaign, you need to start getting data on performance based on your search terms report to make sure your search terms are in line with exactly what it is you're focusing on for your business. So there's no harm in this scenario of using manual CPC to learn that and to do that. Generally speaking, if you launched a campaign with maximized conversions with no conversion data prior in the account, and you don't even know if your offer or your website is any good and you're just kind of testing it in the market, the first thing to do is start off with generating good quality traffic. So obviously that means using things like exact match as your main match type when you launch, checking your search terms report, and as you're gathering that data, to avoid fluctuations in CPCs, it makes sense to use manual CPC or to use maximized conversions with a CPC cap in place. If you were to launch a new campaign in a new account with no conversion data and a new potential offer, there is a potential for you to have very high CPCs, because as Google's bidding algorithm is learning how to spend your budget and optimize towards your conversion goals when there is no prior conversion data, you can see some pretty lofty CPCs in that period. And if your budget is strapped, it makes more sense to generate more traffic earlier on so you can engage the quality of that traffic before pushing with a smart bidding strategy. So in that scenario, you can't go wrong with either manual CPC to control your cost of traffic or maximize clicks to get as much traffic as possible while also setting a max CPC. But don't forget, you don't want to be too aggressive with your max CPC, whether that's on manual CPC, setting your CPC bids, or whether that is on a maximize clicks strategy, giving you the opportunity to set a max CPC as well. You don't want to be too aggressive. If you limit the campaign too much, you're going to get no visibility and you'll be in the worst of both worlds. You'll be in a world where you're not on a conversion-based strategy and a traffic-based strategy while also getting no traffic. It doesn't make any sense. So don't be too aggressive, and maybe even start with a maximize clicks strategy with no CPC cap in place, and then put one in place if you're noticing extremely high CPCs as a precaution. Another reason to use manual CPC is if you are running a brand campaign, because essentially all you're doing is protecting your brand name on the search results. You're not bidding towards conversion. You're not bidding after generic keywords to try and fight for a market. You're defending your brand name. And in this scenario, it's okay to use manual CPC. What manual CPC will give you for your brand campaign is allowing you to have a fixed cost per click for protecting your brand. If you were, for example, to go down another strategy, which is really good for branding, which is a target impression share strategy to try and maximize your visibility for your brand keyword, what you can find is your CPCs can get pretty lofty if you get a load of competitors coming in for your brand. But not even that. We can see over time, people's brand keywords are getting more expensive. Call it Google Ads inflation or call it Google turning the switch. In any case, that can happen. And what can happen sometimes is you end up spending too much money on your brand. Do you really want to spend like $10 for a brand click if that's what it takes to get 100% impression share? Probably not. So you want to kind of have control. Now with target impression share, you can of course set your target impression share. So you can actually say, I don't want to get 100% visibility, and I can actually control this with budget as well. You could lower your budget in this case to try and reduce your click costs for your brand name. But some advertisers just prefer to use manual CPC, guarantee a fixed cost per click for brand protection, and just accept they can't be 100% visible for their brand. And that's okay. I think in either case, both advertisers using either method is right. It just takes close management of both methods. Make sure on manual CPC, you are setting your bids at a level that actually protects your brand. And if you are in a situation where you're paying too much, you can always bring it back down manually. And my final example I want to give you of when manual CPC can be useful is if you're running an incredibly niche campaign, basically powered by one single keyword, then you can get away with manual CPC. It can be something you can use to make sure that that single keyword you're really focused on is going to have money behind it and you're fixing your cost of traffic. And the reason manual CPC is good on this occasion is because in reality, there's no diversity between keywords. When you think about smart bidding, it requires diversity of keywords, diversity of assets, and diversity of setup in the account across ad groups to basically allow the smart bidding algorithm to dip in and out of your assets, your keywords, and your content in your campaigns to match that to a user's intent. And by having no kind of, diversity in the campaign, Google's smart bidding algorithm can't really do much more than what manual CPC could likely do for a single niche exact match keyword. I have a client in the B2B space doing exactly this. They're promoting something incredibly niche where basically anybody searching this, they want to get maximum visibility for, which goes back to the argument I made before, which is you could use target impression share for this, and it is a valid strategy, and both can be valid. But I think overall, target impression share can see incredibly high CPCs when you start pushing. Again, you can control this by setting your target impression share and by limiting your budget, but some advertisers just find it easier to use manual CPC, fix the cost on the keyword, and then just check the impression share in the auction insights and just kind of see where they sit versus competitors, and just do it that way. And if they want to increase and get more visible, they can. And if they want to pull back, they can. Both of these are basically levers of control of visibility of very narrow keywords. You can either set your manual CPC bids to control your visibility up and down as you see fit, or if you're using target impression share, you can control your target impression share percentage up or down based on your aggression that you want to use. So in either case, both advertisers are fine. It just comes down to preference, in my opinion. So in this scenario, manual CPC to me is perfectly acceptable. So what did we learn here today? We learned that manual CPC is kind of dead, not as dead as maybe some of you first thought, but for most advertisers, most of the time, it is pretty much dead. And I think this video highlights that point. You don't want to be on manual CPC when using a generic campaign trying to grow into a marketplace and bid on keywords that have a lot of competition. You want to grow into that marketplace, take control, and you want to have a campaign that is ambitious. You want to get more conversions, you want to get more conversion data, and you want to leverage that data to grow a campaign. Being stuck on manual CPC with a tiny campaign is not where you want to be. And that is why generally I say manual CPC is dead for most advertisers most of the time. But let me know in the comments, are you using manual CPC? I'm okay. I've got broad shoulders. I can deal with the hate if you're somebody using manual CPC and you want to tell me, hey, I think you're terrible for talking down manual CPC. Let me know in the comments. Let's have a chat down there. I reply to pretty much all comments on all of my videos. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other content across my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.